Okay, another thing I want to stress before you start doing your projects, whether you're doing it in somebody else's house or you're doing it in your own house, is that you should always have masking, right? So what I have there is some throw these out. They're not all folded up right, but so when I go into a customer's house, I'll go ahead and use some of this stuff, right? I have drops that I put down, and I'll run a drop from the front door all the way to where the project site is at, you know, depending how far it is. Or I try to find the closest access point, whether that be the front door or the garage or a back door, so I'm not tracking all through their house, okay? I use a thick 4 mil if possible. This is 3.5 mil. It's just the thickness of the plastic for my floors. And I use the painter plastic, which is usually like a 0.3, 0.5. I'll use that for the walls. I also use it to drape it over anybody's furniture. When it comes to scraping popcorn, which we're going to get into later in this series, I'm going to show you how I mask off a room to remove the popcorn. But the intent is to keep it as clean or cleaner than when you walked into that person's home or even your own home. Dust control, keeping the dust down. You're going to use blue tape. Blue tape I found, it holds up depending on what paint they have. If it's a real slick paint like a semi-gloss or an eggshell, sometimes it doesn't hold, so you have to use maybe an orange tape or a green tape. I would never recommend using that manila color tape like you get for packaging, because that always rips the paint and that gives you more work down the line. This is the less aggressive. The adhesive does not pull off the paint and texture from walls. That's why I always like this. And then finally, I started using this a few years ago. I learned this from the painters. It's a masking machine, right? So you buy this paper separate. You buy your tape separate, and this is actually two pieces that you got to buy separate. The handle is one piece and the blade is another piece. I mean, they're going to get you somewhere, they're going to get you. But what's really nice about it is you grab hold, you pull it, you cut it, and now you have a piece that's already put together. And you're going to put this for your base, around windows, around doors, whatever, right? But I cannot stress enough to do good masking. You know, mask your floors, mask your walls, mask anything that you're not working on, so that way your cleanup later is going to be minimal. And or if you're doing this as a profession, then you're keeping that customer and that client's house clean, and they're going to appreciate it, and you're not going to sit there a long time having to clean up stuff or go back and fix stuff. Okay, let's get to the next one. Okay, so before we get started doing the mudding, what I want to do is mask off the floor. Let's say that, you know, it's your concrete. It's going to save you time if you mask it off. If it's a finished floor or if you're in a customer's home, you're just going to want to put plastic. So for the floor, I always use a 4 mil or a 3.5 mil. It's just a thicker type of plastic. It's like a sheathing that they'll use sometimes for a vapor barrier. You find this usually in the paint section with the heavier plastics. So all you're going to do is you're going to roll it out. I like to roll it out. I'm even going to go past it a little bit because I have these outsides that I'm going to be using. Okay, so I'm a little bit past. I don't know if you can see that. I'm a little bit past it on this side. I'm going to roll past it on this side. And then I'm just going to cut. I have a new blade in here. Now, because it's concrete floor, it may not always stick with tape. You might not always have tape that's going to stick down. I already swept the area. So again, I don't know if you can tell, but this is a really thick plastic. I have my Mr. Buddy heater in here. I don't want this to catch on fire, right? So I'm gonna move that out of the way. So on these outside pieces, you're just going to cut straight up. Just going to drop it down. And here you can tuck that underneath. Just gonna shove it in the drywall. I'm gonna do the same thing for the other side, and then probably try to tape it down and see if it'll stick. It's cold in the garage, and it's been dusty from the cutting, so we'll see how that goes.